Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
Okay, it is 7:06. News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We're making sense of the news. It is a good Thursday morning. I'm Patrice Onwuka. You know my voice from Fridays, and I'm here with Bethany Mandel, who's usually here on Thursdays. We are here for sitting in for Larry, who is on vacation. Larry, hello to you, sir. Right now, we are happy to, well, in a moment, we'll welcome our first guest for the show today, but at 7:30, stick around. We've got Steve Moore. You know him as a well-noted economist. He's going to give us the lowdown on the shutdown ending, some of the mortgage proposals we're seeing floated, and other news of the day. And then at 8:05, KT McFarland will be joining us as usual to talk about Venezuela ramping up its military presence in the Caribbean. But right now, happy to always speak with Marc Morano from the Climate Depot. Marc, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here, Patrice. Enjoy it. I'm coming to you live from Belém, Brazil, home of the UN Climate Summit.
Oh, my goodness. What's the weather like? I know you're there for that climate summit.
Well, you know, it's like the tropics here. I guess that's because it is. We're south of the equator, and it is in the 90s, hot, humid every day, and you get unbelievable sideways rainstorms every afternoon, just drenching rains. And then it's sunny minutes later.
Well, certainly then that is justification for why, you know, we've got to give up our gas-powered vehicles. We've got to get electric panels. We need to stop using AC. Marc, I mean, the work for COP50, it's not done, right? What's coming out of this conference so far?
Well, okay, this is COP30, and I know that sounds like, you know, something like a Taylor Swift bachelor party, like what number COP is jumping out of a cake, but it's called Conference of Parties. This is the UN Climate Summit, 30th year of this nonsense, and it began 1992 when George H.W. Bush got us into this. This conference this year, it included, first of all, for the first time ever, no U.S. delegation. The Trump administration said, we're not sending anyone. So I self-declared myself as the official U.S. delegation, unofficial U.S. delegation. And then Gavin Newsom shows up 2 days ago and Politico declared him the unofficial U.S. climate ambassador. So I'm battling it out. What an ego Gavin Newsom has. I declared myself the unofficial delegation. Now he's saying he's the unofficial. But he came down to this conference and basically acted like he was the president of the United States, going around, walking through the conference center, giving speeches, praising the whole UN process. Meanwhile, China is the number one dominant force. The whole summit is about empowering China. They have Xi Jinping's books displayed out. When you walk in the conference center, you see two giant Chinese flags. You see a big China exhibit set up, and they're standing room only. I mean, this is where they are now the new leaders of this UN climate movement.
That is wild. So the biggest offenders from every pollution standpoint is China. Has anyone noted that irony?
No. In fact, what happens is when current reality fails to alarm, as long as you make commitments in the future that sound really intense. So they're building 2 coal plants a week, almost 100 coal plants a year. They're globally dominant with fossil fuel emissions and all of the fossil fuels. But it doesn't matter because, hey, they want to meet the net zero goals of the UN. They're team players. So they get prominent displays. They get constant praise. And that's not the only thing going on here. Yesterday, are you ready for this? The Global Initiative for Information Integrity on Climate Change was declared here, the UN Secretary General, and this is a declaration. Are you ready for this? Drum roll. To take concrete action to counter the growing impact of disinformation, misinformation, denialism, and attacks on environmental journalists. And they're basically going after the climate-related disinformation running rampant on social media. So the UN is calling for a massive global censorship regime coming out of this summit so that no one can disagree with what the UN says.
God forbid you're guilty of wrongthink. So on that front, one of the things that interests me most when we talk about climate change is kids and education. And the indoctrination that comes. Has there been any conversations about how to ensure that the next generation are not guilty of wrongthink when it comes to climate change?
They at these summits, they always have children's books, and they usually have children's events. I have not seen that this year. And by the way, Greta moved on. She was the
She was not there?
Example.
Oh, she's out.
No, Greta,
in Gaza.
About 3 years ago, she actually, I think we can all agree with Greta. The one thing we could all agree with Greta on is she condemned the whole UN process as greenwashing, as a scam, as nothing more than a big, show that was not sincere. She nailed it. And then, of course, she moved on to fighting Israel in the Middle East. And actually, I give Greta credit. She said she'd never fly again. And when she went to Israel, they forced her on an airplane when they sent her back home to Sweden, and she was forced to fly. So she actually violated her original pledge. But no, Greta's no longer involved in this. And I have not seen any children's contingency here. But this whole idea of going after disinformation, that's going to apply to schools if they go somewhere. And this is something like Gavin Newsom probably would have no problem whatsoever with that. And again, this is a very good summit for the United States because we don't have anyone here. We're not playing along with this absolute BS that the United Nations is proposing. And what they're going to do, this is going to go on for another 10 days here. I mean, this is unbelievable, this summit. 30,000 people, they clear-cut 8 miles of Amazon rainforest, tens of thousands of acres, hundreds of thousands of trees, to put in a 4-lane highway so they could bring in even more people with SUVs and limos. We had private jets coming in with the royal family, the UK Prime Minister the other day. This is just,
Mark, there's only one thing that I think would make this better. Were they serving real meat? Is that true? They're serving real meat now?
Okay, I had an interview with Politico. Politico informed me yesterday that the Bob's Burgers, which is the number one line crowded, sold out of hamburgers yesterday at this summit. There are no insect offerings and there are no lab-grown meat offerings. Now, I don't know how that happened, but that's what's happening. The delegates are lined up. They're chowing on chicken, burgers, and the whole summit is just, 30,000 people, bigger carbon footprint, and use more energy than most African nations use in a year. But hey, they're saving the planet.
Mark, I'm so glad you're on the ground. You're our eyes and our ears there. Folks, we now know that they are eating animal meat, which is amazing. I'm hopeful. Well, it's too hot there to wear fur coats, but, I think people should be welcome to. Do we have a sense of who could be funding some of these they're private jets, but who is paying some of these countries to go? Because I'm sure there are countries who cannot feed their people right now, but are still sending contingencies. Is it fair to say that maybe China is just trying to prop a lot of this up by funneling money to as many different countries to send folks there, really just to kind of to create this whole shell game?
Well, that's a great question. It's interesting. The reason you mentioned poor countries, some of the highest represented nations at this summit are the poor developing nations, and it makes no sense. Why would a country come to a UN summit whose stated goal is to limit their energy exploration? In other words, African nations, South American nations, they're told they can't make the same mistakes as the U.S. and Europe. What are those mistakes? Well, we use so much energy and we created a climate emergency. So you're telling these poor Africans who can't get coal-fired power plants, they can't get the financing, Europe boycotts it. So how do they get them? The UN is unbelievably brilliant when it comes to this and how they get these countries here. They tell them they are going to promise the leaders of these countries hundreds of billions of dollars in a climate slush fund, the Climate Fund. This was started by Hillary Clinton during Obama. And so what happens is the UN pays the countries that are best able to keep their citizens locked in poverty. And that's why you get poor nations leaders getting the financing, getting the money from the Treasury, and who knows, as you mentioned, China could be aiding these countries and they want them here because they're paying these countries. They're proving, hey, we're keeping our carbon footprint low. We don't have running water. We don't have electricity. You're doing it right. You're saving the earth. We'll get you some solar panels for your huts made of dung or, animal feed. And that's what happens. And so you get this huge contingent. And by the way, we are limited as wealthy Western nations, the United States, of going to the summit every day. We're not allowed in. They have a reparations thing, so they're allowing in people of color in the developing world more than us, so that they can have equity here.
Mark, I'm going to give you the green light to pretend to claim to be a black woman like me, and that should give you a card to get in for the rest of the conference. We appreciate you being eyes and ears on the ground. Marc Morano, folks, please follow him at on X at Climate Depot. Great information, great details. Mark, be safe out there.
Thank you, Patrice. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Oh, this song brings me back. We always play it because we've lost someone special. Bethany, we're going to say goodbye to someone who brings immense value to our nation. This entity has, adorned many a shoe. This has been an entity who has really, represented what it means to hold value for a very long time. In fact, for over 230 years. I'm talking about the penny. We are going to say goodbye, as the United States will no longer be producing the penny. Are you guys collecting pennies at home?
No, but this came up weirdly during dinner last night, and my kids were surprisingly upset about it.
Really?
Yeah. It was a level. We played that song as a joke, and you were joking as you sort of led into this segment. My kids were really upset. So
really?
Maybe I need to be collecting pennies. I'm not sure. It's certainly going to be harder to teach math skills without the penny in circulation, although I don't know how much my kids encounter coins, if I'm just being honest. Everything is true. Credit cards now.
Everything is digital through either your credit card or your phone. Let's play Cut 16. This is a Fox Business reporter letting us know that the U.S. Mint has pressed its last penny forever.
The last penny has now been minted. It costs about 3.7 cents to make a penny. The reason it's gone is because of the waste and the fraud related to this. Let's just look at the last penny. These are some of the last pennies that were minted. There's about 5 of them here. You can see the 5 pennies that have been minted. They are now putting them away. This is, again, it's costing the U.S. government a lot of money. They said that about $85.3 million is the loss that the U.S. Mint had for minting the pennies. There are about 300 billion in circulation, so they're not going away. You can still use them as legal tender. It's just they're going to mint no more of them. And with 300 billion in circulation at the moment, the U.S. Treasurer is telling me that there's enough to go around for a very long time. But again, the last pennies have now been minted.
So the last penny has been minted, but there's going to be lots of pennies in circulation. So is it really a bad thing then, Bethany?
So here's the question that I have from just like a technical standpoint, and someone who used to work in retail. What, like, if I'm giving change, like, how is this going to work if we don't have a coin and I can't give someone 94 cents? Are there going to be accounting things that have to happen in order to fudge that penny? I think that we need to think this through.
Well, I have a simple solution. We no longer end money or value things below 5 cents.
Okay.
Right? So
I believe that.
if there's no longer $5.94, it is now $5.95, period. Or it's an even dollar. And that solves the problem.
I support you. I just don't know how that looks like in practice.
Well, I think it's really it's silly in practice. I do worry about the fact that we do get away from money. I do not have any coins in my purse whatsoever. My wallet only has tender and cash and bills. And then very often my husband will use his pay with his Apple Pay. So children are missing something, which is the ability to count coins.
Yeah.
My younger ones, they have to have a strip of paper to teach them what coins look like. And I have to remember, always to make sure that we have a quarter, for the cart return at some grocery stores. But that's about it. I do think that we're missing something here.
Yeah, I love I love using tangible coins to teach my kids. And I realized we were on a trip to Europe. I guess it was it was London. So it was a couple months ago. I brought my older 5 kids to London with me, and my daughter encountered physical real coins for the first time. And it blew her mind. She was 5 at the time. And I thought to myself, what am I doing wrong? That you're 5 years old? And she thought that coins were a thing only in Europe because she had never encountered American coinage before. And so she's like, isn't it cool how they have these here? What America used to have? Because she had played with them when I would do school with her, but they were the play version. But she thought that
not
American,
the real coin.
Yeah. She thought that Americans didn't use coins anymore.
Well, there are over 300 billion pennies sitting around somewhere, so somebody's got them somewhere. Please, folks, hold on to it. That penny may be worth more in the future. All right, it's 7:23. Okay, coming up, we've got Steve Moore joining us live. Stay with us. It's O'Connor and Company at 7:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
All right now. It is 7:37 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. Good Thursday morning, everyone. It feels like a woman because you've got me, Patrice Onwuka, and I'm here with Bethany Mandel. Larry is on vacation, so it is Ladies' Day all day. Good morning, Bethany.
Good morning. I'm so excited, and we should do this all the time.
I agree. Speaking of other women, we're going to have KT McFarland at 8:05 here to talk about Venezuela ramping up on the military in the Caribbean. But right now, our good friend Steve Moore is joining us. Steve is an economist. He is the president of Unleashing Prosperity, former Trump economic advisor. Steve, good to speak with you this morning.
Well, good morning, ladies. Where is Larry? It seems like he's always on vacation these days.
Well, you know, he's here, there, and everywhere. And I've seen him on X this morning, so I know he's up. He's listening to us, and I'm sure he's got some good words for us when he gets back and bring some sunshine with him. But Steve, I think we all have some sunshine and some smiles because the shutdown has finally come to an end.
Well, you know, I was just writing a column on this last night, and I don't know if you two are probably too young to remember this, but there's a very, very famous scene in the iconic movie Animal House where John Belushi says, "It's time for a futile and stupid gesture." And I was thinking, you know, after the last month, that's all this really was just a futile and stupid gesture that cost the American economy about $60 billion. It caused a lot of mayhem this weekend. And my wife and I went to Florida, and the whole trip was ruined because, you know, we spent half the weekend at the airport with one flight after another canceled, delayed, And what did they achieve? What did Chuck E. Schumer achieve? Absolutely nothing. At the end of the day, he capitulated, thank God. But what a huge toll he put on the American people and on the American economy. And shame on them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think it was a game of chicken and Chucky lost. I think that was.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to win a game of chicken against Donald Trump. Do you?
You'd think that they'd learn that by now, but apparently not. I want to shift gears for a second and talk about something that we discussed during an earlier segment, the 50-year mortgages, and conversations potentially around making mortgages portable. What are your thoughts on that idea?
Well, let me put this in a broader context, if I may.
Yeah.
So what people are angry about right now, and voters were clearly angry about this last week when they went to the polls, is inflation and the high cost of things. And they should be, because under Joe Biden, we saw the highest inflation since Jimmy Carter was in office. The average price of food and gas and the things you have to buy went up 25, 30, 35%. And we still have the lingering effects of that. I mean, I know that. When I go to the grocery store, I can't believe how much things cost. And people are blaming Trump for that. And I just have to say that's outrageous. I mean, inflation has come down since Trump came into office. Yes. We had 9% inflation under Biden at one point, and right now we're at 2.8%. And so if you're angry about the prices of everything, including housing, including groceries, including well, you can't be angry about gasoline because gas prices are now down in many areas to below $3 a gallon. So this whole idea of bringing into effect a 50-year mortgage is kind of a White House response to people's anger about how much things cost, especially housing. Now, on the 50-year mortgage, I'm kind of ambivalent about this. I do think that it's an interesting idea, but people would be saddled with a lot of long-term debt. How many people live in a house for 50 years?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
My parents almost did. They almost lived in that house that they bought for 50 years. But the point is, you're basically going to have lower payments, right, each month, especially up front. But, boy, you're going to be taking a lot of debt for a long time. So I see both sides of it. I'm not wild about the idea.
Yeah. I mean, I think, Steve, a lot of us feel the same way. Going back to the shutdown, but really looking forward, what's great about the deal that was struck is that it takes some things off the table in future, when this next continuing resolution expires on January 30th. So, for example, SNAP has been funded for a full fiscal year. Veterans benefits have been funded for a full fiscal year. So those can no longer be bargaining chips that can be used by any party, to hold up another continuing resolution. Do you see that, I already saw Politico's headlines talking about the next shutdown is looming in the future. Do you see that we would be here again, or are you confident Congress will actually pass the budget and all the appropriations bills at this point?
Well, what this fight was really about fundamentally was what are we going to do about our broken healthcare system? And, when I talked about affordability, that's the big. Have you noticed that? That's the new buzzword now, affordability. Yes. The thing that's not affordable is healthcare. It is so outrageous, and my wife and I just got our notice from our health insurance company that our premiums are going to go up 14% next year. Mm-hmm. Some people are getting 25%. What has happened since the advent 15 years ago of Obamacare is one of the greatest frauds ever perpetrated on the American people. Obamacare is a complete government-run healthcare disaster in every single way, and that's a message that Trump is starting to say, and every Republican should say it day after day after day. We were all sold a false bill of goods with Obamacare. Every time the government runs something, they screw it up, right? That's why Bondani, said, government can solve any problem. Right, show me one problem the government has survived. So we need to fundamentally fix our healthcare system. And some of the people who are really, one of the industries that is most to blame for this shutdown is the health insurance lobby, because they're making hundreds of billions of dollars off of the fraud of Obamacare. When Democrats said, we got to feed more money into the system, 70% of the money that the Democrats wanted to pour into the system would have gone right into the coffers of the big health insurance companies. So let's just get rid of them. I mean, people tend to be overinsured. If we just had paid for health care the way we paid for everything else, where you had catastrophic insurance, if you get cancer or heart disease or you have an injury,
Steve, can I hold you off for 1 minute? You've got some good solutions there, and I want to spend some time on digging through those, but I've got to get to a break. So can you stick with me for just a couple more minutes?
I'd be happy to, because there's a lot more.
Awesome. All right. It's 7:44.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
All right, so we're back with Steve Moore, economist, president of a Committee for Unleashing Prosperity. Steve, I so rudely interrupted you while you were explaining some of the solutions to healthcare challenges that are not the Affordable Care Act. Please continue.
Well, great to be with you guys again. So I was starting to say that we have a completely dysfunctional healthcare system, and that's because of Obamacare. Obamacare was a fraud. It has driven costs through the roof. It is not the. Remember, by the way, they called it the Affordable Care Act.
Yes.
Talk about false and misleading. So healthcare costs have doubled to tripled since we passed that. So a couple of things. First of all, the last time you went to see a doctor or you went to a hospital, did you ever ask what it was going to cost?
No.
They don't tell you.
No,
They won't tell
nobody
you.
does that. They won't tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the most unbelievable thing. It'd be like going to the grocery store and saying, "Oh, I'll just take this. I'll take this," and there's no prices. It's how can you have a market when nobody knows what anything costs? And so one of the things we need, and Trump has been pushing for this, but there's been a lot of pushback from the hospitals and the drug companies and the physicians, which is post your prices. Tell us what things are going to cost.
Yeah.
You could be two hospitals in Washington, D.C. that are maybe 3 miles apart, and one charges $5,000 for an MRI, and the other one costs $500 for an MRI. It's not a functioning market. So number one, force the doctors and the drug companies and the physicians and the clinics to tell us what things are going to cost. Second of all, people are overinsured for healthcare, not underinsured. We'd be in a much lower price environment if people had catastrophic insurance, like you have a fire insurance in your house in case it burns down, but people would just pay out of pocket, because then guess what? The consumers would start to figure out what things cost.
Yes.
And those kinds of things would make a big difference. And then finally, when it comes to things like lowering the price of drugs, the FDA is the enemy of drug development. They're holding life-saving drugs off the market, and that is making drugs more expensive. So those are simple steps we could take, but we have to repeal Obamacare. We have to get government out of healthcare. Isn't it interesting, ladies, that the two industries, what are the two industries in America where prices have been rising the most?
Education.
Higher ed.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, higher ed and healthcare.
Yep.
Gee, what do those have in common? Oh, yeah, the government pays for those.
Yep. So I want to piggyback a little bit. We got a notice in the mail from our private insurance company. My husband gets insurance through his job. And I did not realize how much money my husband's employer was paying for our insurance. And I think that buffer also between us and that cost is a lot of why people are unaware of the crisis.
Exactly.
For a family, it's costing my husband's employer $60,000 extra a year.
Wow.
What?
60.
60. 60.
Yeah.
$5,000 a month.
Yeah. That's pretty high. I mean, for most families, it's closer to 40. But even still, let's say it's 40, not 60. Think about that. If you could just if you could buy a catastrophic health insurance plan for 1/5 that amount, maybe $10,000 or what, and then you would just pay out of pocket for your routine expenses. How many people have $40,000 of healthcare expenditures each year? Not many. So the whole system is rigged to benefit the insurance companies and the industry, not the American families. And incidentally, your example is an important one, because let's say that your husband's employer didn't have to pay that. This is money that is coming right out of the paycheck.
Yep.
That's right.
In other words, because that cost has to be passed on, and so people would be getting, how would you like, folks, a 8 or 9 or 10% increase in your paycheck? You can have that if we had a more rational pay system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Steve, always a wealth of information and knowledge. Folks should be absolutely following you on X and subscribe to the daily newsletter for the Unleash Prosperity newsletter. I love it. I read it every single day. Looking forward to having you back again soon, Steve.
Okay, guys, have a great day. Thanks for having me.
All right, you too. It's 7:53.